Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I am going to be showing you probably my favorite arc build right now on Warlocks. I did recently cover a arc build on Warlocks. It was kind of just like a very early version of what you're going to see here, actually. Because Arc 3.0 had just dropped, the new exotic for Warlocks hadn't been released yet, and people were still experimenting with a lot of different combos, finding out what's good for each of the characters. And it was just very scuffed. But this build is a lot more perfect, and you're really going to see how the Arc subclass can be utilized on Warlocks to become very, very powerful. So, the exotic armor piece that we will be using for this build is the brand new one for Season 18, the Fallen Sunstar. And pretty much what this does is it will make Ionic Traces move a little quicker on the ground, which honestly isn't that big of a difference. The big difference comes with that you get additional ability energy for every Ionic Trace you pick up. On top of this, you'll also give allies ability energy every time you collect an Ionic Trace as well. So it's as if they picked one up too, except they didn't, which is really nice for characters that can't make Ionic Traces or don't benefit from Ionic Traces normally. So that's really nice. But yeah, the big thing is you gain more additional ability energy. And with specific setups and the setup that I'm going to be showing you, you can essentially have infinite abilities. So I could throw my grenade and have a grenade back when it's done. Which is super, super awesome. So that's what we're going to be doing in this build. The stats you will want for this build as well is 100 Resi, 100 Dis, 100 Strength. The reason why you want 100 Dis and 100 Strength is because we're going to be using both of these abilities quite a lot to actually fuel and cycle Ionic Traces continuously, so we have infinite abilities, but also you want Resi because, you know, Resi is completely busted right now. 40% DR for free is exceptional. Rifts are not necessary in this build because, you know, we do have a little bit of healing in the build, but also you're going to get your abilities back so fast you won't need to spec into Recurve for Rifts, so that's, you know, that's just how it's going to be. Honestly, the Arc Supers on Warlock are complete dog without their respective exotics, so Storm Dancers, Crown of Tempests, and Geomags. So because we're using Fallen Sunstar, Supers are completely irrelevant. They're just going to be awful, so don't even think about speccing into that. And Moby is just like, whatever. You could go into Moby if you want, but I'm not going to on Warlock. So, the actual subclass itself. Everything up here is completely optional. I prefer Chain Lightning because it jolts enemies, and Jolt is going to be quite useful in this build. Ball Lightning is not terrible. It's not bad, but it doesn't jolt, so it's like, whatever. And then Storm Grenades are going to be very powerful in this build because they are arguably the best grenade. But for the purpose of the build, they are definitely going to be the best grenade to use in this setup. For the aspects, we have Lightning Surge, which is basically going to turn our melee into a Worldline Blink, if you will. The reason why we're using this is because it jolts targets, and jolting is not only extremely powerful by itself, but going to be very useful for something else in the build later on. So I do recommend you use this. Arc Souls don't provide anything to the build. They are quite fun, I guess, but they don't provide anything additional to the build. And they're not going to help in cycling abilities at all, so don't recommend using those. And then finally we have Electrostatic Mind, which is awesome. Pretty much when you defeat enemies with arc abilities, or you defeat jolted or blinded targets, you will create an Ionic Trace. Now this is awesome because this build has all of that in it. We're going to be getting lots of kills with arc abilities. We're going to be jolting because we're already jolting here. And blinding targets will come later on as well. So pretty much everything we do will create an Ionic Trace. And of course, because of our helmet, Ionic Traces are going to give us tons of ability energy back. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know it gives us quite a lot. And then obviously collecting an Ionic Trace with this aspect on will make us amplified, which means we can run a lot faster. We'll get max handling. And it's a very fun mechanic. Amplified is a very fun mechanic, so that's really nice to have as well. Now for the Fragments, we have being surrounded by combatants makes us more resistant to incoming damage. We are literally using this for free DR, that is it. It is just free DR to put on top of your 100 Resi, honestly, so I recommend having that. Then we have defeating a jolted target creates an Ionic Trace. So we're already making a Ionic Trace by killing jolted enemies with this. So killing jolted enemies creates an Ionic Trace here. We are jolting with our melee, the teleport melee as well, which is super easy to do. And then we're also going to be making another Ionic Trace on top of the one we were already making. So we're making 2 per jolted kill with this now, which is really good. And then we have Spark of Shock, which makes our arc grenades jolt targets as well. So our melee was jolting targets, and now our storm grenades are jolting targets, which means we can use both to cycle out both abilities, because we're making double the Ionic Traces now, and they're giving us multiple or more energy for the multiple ones that we pick up. And then finally I have while I'm amplified, arc, special weapon, final blows create a blinding effect. So we are in this case using the Forbearance. If you have a crafted one, you have an adept one, this is a very good weapon to use. If you have a salvagers or just any arc special you want, you can use that. And that means that we will make Ionic Traces off of blinded targets now, because we have access to blinding. So everything in the build creates Ionic Traces, and those Ionic Traces are basically doubled in quantity, because our main source of Ionic Traces are going to jolt targets. So the kills from the actual abilities will create an Ionic Trace, and then the kills on the jolted targets after that will create an Ionic Trace. And because we're using Fallen Sunstar, we're going to get more energy back, which means that we can essentially use an ability and get the ability back for free. And we're not even at the good part yet. The mods are going to help that out too. So yeah, that's pretty much the subclass and how that's going to work. Before I forget, I should mention that you can actually swap out Sparta Beacons if you'd like. You know, not everyone wants to be using an arc special weapon, and not everyone really cares for the blinding explosion. So if you do want to actually swap this out, you can. You could swap it for Spark of Magnitude if you want, which is going to make the Storm Grenade last longer, which is actually really nice, and makes Storm Grenades just that much more powerful. But you can also use something like Spark of Discharge, which will make all arc weapons, not just the special. So I could use the Osmosis SMG, I could use Thunderlord, I could use anything. They will also make Ionic Traces as well. Now, for weapons, I did mention Forbearance. However, you can actually use the brand new exotic fusion rifle, if you want to, the Delicate Tomb, because this also makes Ionic Traces. Now, it isn't necessary, because we already are getting our abilities back instantly with the mods that I have, with the Ionic Traces and the Fallen Sunstar already. But if you want a little bit more utility with that, you can use the Delicate Tomb and get Ionic Traces back even more often. So, you know, it's completely up to you. I like using Forbearance because Forbearance is just perfect in every way. It's great for ad clear, it's great for taking down bigger targets, and it blinds now. But if you want to use that fusion rifle, you most definitely can. Now, for the mods, very straightforward stuff. First off, we have Elemental Ordnance. This is basically going to create an arc well every time we get a grenade kill. Now, we are going to be using Bountiful Wells with this, because every time we make a well, it'll make an additional well based on the amount of well-making mods we have in. So we have 1 Elemental Ordnance, we have 2 Elemental Ordnance, which means we'll make 3 wells for every grenade kill. And then finally, I have Melee Well Maker, which is going to create a arc well when I get a melee kill. And because of Bountiful Wells, that means I'm actually going to be creating 2 wells per melee kill. So we'll get 3 wells per grenade kill and 2 wells per melee kill, which is perfect because my grenade takes a little bit longer to cool down than my melee. So, in theory, every time I use a grenade, I should get a grenade back, and I should also get a part of my melee back. And every time I use a melee, I should get a melee back and part of my grenade back, because I will be making 2 Ionic Traces per grenade and melee, which is awesome. So that's the build. That is pretty much it. Those are the mods. Everything else is just to help out weapons and whatever I have in here. But you can use whatever you want, and it'll do just fine. So yeah, thanks for watching, and adios.